Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Prog podcast interview. This is Roy. Hope you guys are doing okay out there. My guest on this episode is Sean Timms, keyboardist, songwriter, and producer for bands like Southern Empire and Unitopia, both of whom have albums coming out over the next few weeks. We talk about those new albums and all his other projects and his long career, which is really interesting. Before we get started, just a reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on progport.com and all our socials. And now my interview with Sean Timms. Well, Sean, good to see you here, man. Good to meet you and everything. You are one of the busiest people, as I've come to find, because I think about every few weeks you have a new album coming out over the next few months, or in the last few months and earlier this year. And
Yeah.
I don't know if people are aware of this, but it's just insane. I mean, how have you been managing all of this so far?
Just one day at a time, really. I think. In fact, one Facebook comment I read, it was either this morning or last night, said, I think there must be more than one Sean Timms. And it's kind of, yeah, it's probably not too far from the truth. Because I wear a lot of different hats, and it's, sometimes difficult to keep track of them all. But yeah, look, it's been certainly much easier working from home. And
Right.
so a year last December, we moved in. We did a renovation at home, and part of that renovation was building a completely standalone recording studio with a control room and a booth. And the booth is big enough to put my grand piano, my Hammond organ, my son's drum kit,
How
in
fun.
there.
Yeah, that
And
must have been so much fun to put
yeah,
together. Very cool.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah, that's like a
absolutely. And
dream, right?
so, whereas it is, and I had a small space, well, smaller space in the city. And I used to ride my bike, and yeah, that was good. But working from home's better, and it just allows me to do things like I'll go and pick up the kids at usually 10 past 3. I'll leave and pick up the boys from school, and then I'll come back, and then I'll just do another hour or so, then pick up my wife, and then come back and do another hour or so, while she's cooking dinner. And so I
Yeah, you
can
can just
do
do it
these sort of
whenever. Yeah,
short,
yeah.
sharp bursts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And if I'm busy, if I need to work of an evening, my family are very very gracious with that. I don't make a habit of it. It might only be, maybe 1 or 2 evenings a week at the most. And I might sort of, while the kids go off and do things on a Saturday afternoon, like their swimming lessons and stuff, I'll come into the studio and spend a couple of hours in here. So
Yeah,
it's much easier to do that and to have that little bit of extra time there, rather than having to make a 20-minute trip into the city and a
for
20-minute
sure.
trip back every time I want to do something. So
Well,
on that front, it's been very handy.
I want to go ahead and just sort of run down all the albums for people that aren't aware, because they may even be buying these or planning to get them, or maybe they don't know they're even coming out. So I mean, we have the new
Yeah.
Unitopia album, the new album called Seven Chambers, which is out on August 25th, just a few weeks from now as we're talking. And that's up for pre-order now. New Southern Empire, your third album, Another World, comes out on September 4th. United Progressive Fraternity, or UPF, Planetary Overload Part 2, Hope came out in July. And also you were on the Demonic album, right? Or Demonic album,
Hmm.
Making Sure, earlier
Yeah.
this year, and with Guy Manning. So I mean, that's quite a run for 1 year. It's incredible.
Yep. And then John Greenwood, who's Unitopia's guitarist, his album Dark Blue. So that has been released via Bandcamp, and he's currently getting CDs replicated at the moment. So that should be out on physical media soon, probably in the next few weeks. So what's that? That's
Five records
five albums.
in
Yeah,
a year.
five albums.
But let me ask you this: so you'd had five, let's say five coming out throughout this whole year. What were your previous
Hmm.
years like? Was it all working on all of these, building up to this one year,
Mm.
and was that the last couple of years for you?
Yeah, pretty much. Southern Empire took 5 years. Unitopia took three, a bit over three. John's album took about 2 years. The Damanek album took probably around about 3 years, I reckon, from go to woe. And The UPF album, I really only have contributed in a very minor capacity, just a couple of keyboard parts and a few little programming things. I also contributed a solo to Marek Arnold's art rock project. And I've produced and recorded numerous albums for other clients. So there's probably another half a dozen at least albums of different varieties, genres,
Yeah.
plus working live. uh, so
So
yeah,
for I mean,
it's
you're a full-time producer basically, right? I mean,
mhm.
producer and session
Yeah.
guy, and then you have your own bands. I mean, this is 24/7 for you. So, has it been like that
Hmm.
for a long time?
Yeah, pretty much ever since I started, which was in my very early 20s. I would I started almost by accident as a session musician. I met a guy called Mark Rivet, who was the guru as far as jingle writing is concerned in Adelaide at that time. And I was about 22, and he was predominantly a guitarist. And I asked who he used on keyboards, and me being young, dumb, and but incredibly, you know, filled with that hubris that young people often have. He told me who it was, and I said, "Oh, I'm much better than he is." so, so he says, "I'd never say anything like that now."
Right.
Well, not unless I was joking, but I was really quite serious back then. Um, and so he kind of thought, well, who is this guy? But then he rang his regular keyboard player for a session and he couldn't make it in. And it was quite an urgent thing. So I thought I'll give this Sean Timms character a call. And he called and I said, oh, what's it involved? And he said, oh, it's really easy. You'll do it with your ears pinned back. And I said, are you making fun of me? And he said, no, why? And I said, because I just have my ears pinned back. So because they used to stick out,
Oh wow, that's
they were
wild.
horrible things. Oh yeah, it was like I always say I must have some royal blood because I look like, Prince Charles on a bad day.
Ha.
Um, so, so yeah, and then we just had a really good laugh about that, and the friendship and the partnership was formed right then and there, and I became his go-to keyboard player for jingles and things, and programmer. I learned to program things like Fairlight and all the new drum machines that were coming out at that
Right.
time, all the new synths that were being developed, things like the M1 and the DX7 and all of that kind of stuff. He'd sort of buy this stuff, and then I'd learn to program it, and I'd create string arrangements and, all sorts of stuff. And I was with him for about 8 years, and that's how I got my start in the recording industry. And then gradually moved on to composing music for television and radio and film, and then moved into producing as well.
Wow. So, what got you started in music in the first place? Was it really young, like you were 4 or 5 years old or something like that?
No, no. I was 10 and I had to really pester my parents. My mum had, my mum played a little bit. Um, and my grandparents were living with us, and my grandfather played a little bit by ear. And she did this postal at Christmas time. She did this postal round where she'd go to the post office, load up all the parcels, and then deliver them. So and she made enough money during that short period of time to buy an old upright piano. And as I said, I was 10 and I just started picking out songs, old Shadows songs and Beatles songs by ear. And I'd pester my mum. I said I'd like to learn piano, and yeah, so she eventually sent me to lessons, and I started just before my 11th birthday. Um, and in the first week, I got through the first book, and pretty much never looked back.
That's fun.
And then sort of just yeah. And then my dad, when I was 14, so I've been playing about, maybe just 4 years at that stage, brought home a copy of Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Center of the Earth album. And I looked at it and listened to it, and I go, that's what I want to do. And from then on, it was, I want to be the world's greatest keyboard player. And I'm not there yet, but I'm working towards it. Maybe one of the world's busiest.
So
Um,
so during
but
during the next 10, 20 years, you're doing jingles and session work and all this kind of stuff, and assuming that stuff was doing very well for you. And then what
mhm,
made you then decide, well, let me join a prog rock band or start a prog rock band and do
yeah.
probably the most unpopular style of music at the time.
Oh, look, I was always into prog music right from the start. My dad had a very broad musical taste, and he liked a lot of that sort of stuff. So I started with Rick Wakeman, and then I heard that he was in a band called Yes. So I went straight down to the record shop and bought Relayer, which of course he's not on. But that
Right.
then sent me on a path to, other Yes albums, and so Relayer and Journey to the Center of the Earth were a revelation. And then a friend of mine, his older brother, gave me some cassette tapes of Seconds Out by Genesis, and we could go to and Supertramp even in the quietest moments, and we could go down to the local library, and so I'd hire or borrow Procol Harum's Grand Hotel and Steve Hackett's Please Don't Touch, and things like that. So but I was also into classic sort of West Coast kind of US music. So I loved Steely Dan and Al Jarreau, and later got into James Taylor and things like that. So my listening has always been incredibly broad.
Right.
Um, but I guess prog was my number one love as far as just sitting down. I enjoyed the intricacy of it, and the fact that it was very keyboard oriented and very virtuosic. And so I would sit, because there were no music books back in those days, no transcriptions of anything. You can get anything these days, but there was nothing. So I would sit down at the age of maybe 15 or 16 and transcribe all these Rick Wakeman and Patrick Moraz solos. And,
Wow.
I wore out about 6 tape decks because I'd sort of play a little bit, write, work it out, write it down, rewind, check it, play it, write it, and yeah, just sort of go like that with that old upright piano that I'd had since I was 10. And then when I was 16, my parents bought me a grand piano, and I bought my first synthesizer, which was a Kawai 100 FP, which I'd love to get a hold of one at a reasonable price. So
Yeah.
if anyone knows one for sale, let me know. Um, and then an old kind of Yamaha Electone organ, which you wouldn't even need to buy today. People would be giving them away. And I sawed it in half and made it portable. Almost electrocuted myself a couple of times because I had to plug in wires from the top to the bottom, power supply, and so it was very dodgy. And that got me in an Italian cabaret band where we do a lot of weddings, and that was at 16. And but it wasn't until I was I would have been late 20s, 29, 30, that I met Mark Truax, and through a mutual friend, because he said, look, I think you've got a twin brother out there, because our musical tastes were so similar. We both loved Genesis, yes, Pink Floyd, Alan Parsons, Supertramp, all of that.
Right.
And so we arranged a meetup, and my wife at the time and myself met Mark and his wife, and we went out for dinner and hit it off. And Mark has one of these voices that just suits prog music. It's got Gabrielish kind of tones to it, and so we started writing a song that became "Take Good Care" off the first Unitopia album, and it took us 9 years because we were only doing sporadic things, and we released it through Unicorn, which is Michel St. Pierre's from
From Mystery.
Mystery,
Hmm.
his record label. And in 2006, and then we that was fairly well received. And the fact that a record company wanted to release it, we thought, well, maybe we're onto something here. So then it only took us a couple of years to write and record and produce The Garden, which was extremely well received and released through Inside Out, which was great, being such a well-respected record company, especially for prog music. So that kind of set me on the path, and then we called it a day with Unitopia at 2014, and then I started Southern Empire, and that kind of got me more into the sort of heavier style of prog, which appeals, I think, to a slightly younger demographic, which is where I wanted to head.
Yeah.
And I guess address some of those frustrations that I had with Unitopia at the time. So yeah,
Do you
as far as
still,
stylistically, yeah,
as far as with
yeah,
Southern
go on.
Empire, I mean, do you still get asked about the Civilization record? Because that has to be one of the most commonly asked about albums for us at the Prog Report. Whenever there's any lists or, people will ask what are the top albums of the decade, of the 2000s, of this or new band you should check out, any of these kind of lists. I mean, it is without question always mentioned. And I think that's pretty amazing. I was wondering if you get that, if you've seen that from your view.
I guess you see a certain amount on Facebook, which is really gratifying. As a producer and writer of the album. Um, it's hard to kind of be objective about your own work. So I see it as something that we did at the time that worked really, really well, and we're very proud of it. Um, and I'm not sure how well, Another World will be received. I guess time will tell. We had no idea that Civilization would be so well regarded, because it's just something we kind of put together and we did. But in saying that, I'm very proud of it, and I think it's a strong album.
You have the new album though, that I want to make sure we talk about, which is Another World, and comes out on September 4th. And you guys just put out the second single. First one was Reaching Out. Newest one is Hold On to Me, which you have a new singer in the band, but he's not singing on the single. So why don't you talk about the lineup of the band now, and getting the new singer in, Sean, and everything involved with the new record a little bit.
Hmm. A lot of people, I guess, they got tired of waiting, because it took 5 years, and I guess hearing at the beginning of the interview about all the things I've been working on, and that's a big reason
Yeah.
for it. Guy talking me into doing another Dominic album, and Mark talking me into doing another Unitopia album, and then through Unitopia meeting John, and then working on his album. It sort of took a lot longer than we thought to complete it. And then we had it all done about 12 months ago, and I'm sort of saying, okay, we need to do some, start looking at doing some film clips, and are you guys happy with everything and all that? And then I didn't hear back from Danny, for a little bit, so he was obviously kind of weighing up his decision. And so he rang me and he said, "Look, I wanted to do this in person, but I thought before we went too far, I'd give you a call and just he basically said, look, I'm really not feeling it, I'm not feeling this new album. And even though he'd sung all the songs and his vocal performances were amazing as always, and I think he was a bit concerned about how because I kind of think vocally this album kind of takes it to another level again. And was worried a little bit about how we could, pull it off live, and him in particular. And I think because it had taken so long, it was sort of 4 years at that stage, he'd kind of lost a little bit of interest for it. And also there were some, new opportunities that were coming his way that he may have felt that, Southern Empire might have encroached upon and not been as easy a path as he would like with these new endeavors. So he decided to move on, which was, I wish him all the best. When we announced Sean as our new lead singer, Danny was one of the first to give him a call and congratulate him, and kind of, pass
Yes.
the baton, so to speak. And so, we left some of Danny's guitar work on there, which there was no reason to scrap, and we left some of Danny's backing vocals on there. Again, no reason to scrap them, and maybe for the 20th anniversary, when I'm at the ripe old age of 80, we might release the Danny Lepresto versions, as a bit of a double album remastered or whatever.
Sure, why not?
But we'd recorded the whole album and it was all ready to go, and then we suddenly had to find a new lead singer. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to rush this. But Sean's name had come up because Cam had worked with Sean quite a bit before. And so I watched some clips of Sean and listened to his voice particularly, but also his writing. And I really, really liked it. I really liked his vibe. I really liked his energy. And so I gave him a call and said, would he be interested in auditioning? And he was going through a bit of a tough patch at that stage. They were living, he was living with his folks, and they were saving for a house, and things weren't looking good. And he basically had to go to work just to make ends meet and to get a loan for for a house for his family. I'd had to work in a call center, with no windows and a cubicle and all of that, which, can be quite soul destroying for a free spirited musician. So, um, and so he was kind of in a bit of I guess, a low place, and he's thinking, look, I really don't want to have anything to do with music at the moment because it's just going to break my heart, I think, and so he pulled back on that. And then this phone call comes in from me, and he didn't answer. And then I sent him a text and said, hey, it's Sean here. I don't know you, but Cam's recommended you. Would you be interested in auditioning? And he basically said, well, send me some stuff and I'll have a listen. And so I did. And he was listening with his wife, and she says, you have to do this. You have to do this. This is incredible. So he said, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, far be it for me to disobey my wife." And so he said, "Yeah, okay." And he came in and he sang "Face the Dawn," which is a pretty tough sing, um, and sang it pretty much straight the way through, start to finish. And I thought, oh, here's me thinking it's going to be a nightmare re-recording all this stuff and take me ages. But if Sean sings it like that, it's we're going
Well,
to
I
have it
mean,
done
it's a
in a
miracle
day.
to find another singer even sometimes. It's really hard to find a new vocalist, right? It's and someone that can sing that
Absolutely,
stuff
absolutely.
too. So,
Yeah,
but is that
yeah,
how Cam
yeah.
ended
And
up
who's
singing
into it?
Yeah, Hold On to Me? Was that replacing Danny's vocals
No,
on that one?
no, no. We only ever thought of that as Cam's song, and I couldn't imagine anyone else singing that song other than Cam. But and the way we approached it was that there's an Australian band called Cold Chisel, and I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but amazing, amazing Aussie rock band. and they have a lead singer, Jimmy Barnes, who is incredible. His range, his tone, but they also have Ian Moss on guitar, who's got a slightly softer tone, but incredible range and beautiful voice, amazing voice. And so what they would do is they would kind of trade songs. So Mossy would, start off a song, and then, Jimmy would come in and sing the higher harmony, and it would go to stratospheric heights. And so we thought, let's approach that song in a similar way. Whereas, Cam sings the main lead of the song, and then Danny comes in and sings the really high sort of Jimmy Barnes-ish type parts. And so that was how we'd always envisaged it. And yeah, and it worked really well. So when Sean came to replace Danny's vocals, he did a similar sort of thing, but then took it to an even higher level, and we just felt like Cam's got such a great voice that he could convey that song
He really
better than
does.
anyone else, and
He
so
sounds awesome on it. Yeah, phenomenal. So
yeah,
that's
we're
on
very
that's out
lucky
now.
to
Sorry, just saying
yeah,
that's out now on
no,
YouTube,
all good.
and you can pre-order the album now on GEP record label. Um, I want to before I let you go, also make sure we talk about the Unitopia album, Seven Chambers. Um, so what's your level of involvement between that album or the Southern Empire album? Is it similar for you? Are you like main writing on both of these records?
I think probably John has been the main writer and the main instigator. John and Mark's collaborations were sort of five, I guess, predominantly five of the seven tracks were begun by John. And then I'd have a listen and I'd go, that's great, but it needs a chorus. So I'd write a catchy chorus. I think I'm probably, I think I'm reasonably good at knowing a good hook. I think it's all the days of jingle writing, having an earworm, having that catchy lyric and melody. So I whacked some choruses in on some of these, and then Steve Unruh, our violinist slash flautist slash backing vocalist slash guitarist slash everything else, um, put forward a song called "The Uncertain," which was about his health battles, and it clocked in at about 19 minutes, and then I wrote a song called Helen about. I just wanted to kind of write another thematic type song about someone who, like we did with Artificial and Tesla, just somebody who was, I guess, a real trailblazer in the medical world, but not maybe well known. So we wrote about a lady called Helen B. Tausig, who basically, through her work with pediatric heart disease and blue baby syndrome, and her fields there saved, tens of thousands of babies' lives who would have otherwise died. So, a very interesting character. Her life story is very interesting. You could make a movie out of it. And I guess what I tried to do is, create a mini audio movie of her life, which I enjoy doing when I've got a really good subject matter. So,
Sure.
and that clocks in around about 19 minutes. And
Yeah,
I,
there's
I
some
wrote
long
most
songs
of
on this
that, and
album.
then oh yeah, I wrote most of that, and then John put in the last sort of 3 minutes, to that. So it was, I guess, a team effort between the four of us. So there were contributions, even though the start of an idea might have been from one of the guys that we all contributed. So Mark contributed sort of lyrics and melodies, and I contributed, choruses and hooks, and then John contributed a lot of those original ideas that he'd had sort of swimming around in his musical brain pretty much forever. Um, and
When you also have Chester
yeah,
Thompson on
I
drums on that album as
yep,
well. Should
and
mention that.
Alfonso Johnson on bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's really great stuff. And there's some tour
Uh,
dates as well. happening.
Yep.
That's all out there on Facebook and actually on ProgReport.com. We have news on all these things, so you can check that out too. Man, it's fantastic to have such great music from you coming out throughout this year. A lot of killer stuff. You're as busy as anybody I know. It's just awesome. And of
Yeah.
course, thank you for scheduling this. You're in Australia. I'm in the U.S., and so the time difference is just insane. You're on a completely different day as as we're talking,
Yeah,
which
I'm
is
what am I? Wednesday morning at 10
and
a.m.
yes, and I'm Tuesday evening, so it's wild. But listen, good luck with all the records, all the tour dates, everything you got going on. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. And yeah,
Absolutely, mate.
all right, man.
Yeah, and look for some new material as well. As soon as I get back from tour, I want to get to writing the next Southern Empire album with Sean because he is such not only an amazing vocalist but an amazing writer, songwriter, and if you want to get a bit of an idea as to how good he is, listen to some of his solo stuff that goes by the name of Projected Twin. He's got at least 3 albums out, and it's all crackerjack stuff. So yeah, really, really good. Can't rate it
Awesome.
highly enough.
Very cool. We'll check that out.
Yeah,
Awesome, man. All right,
yeah,
I'll talk to you soon.
easy.
Hey, man.
No worries, buddy. All right, mate.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on all our socials and on ProgReport.com for all your news, interviews, reviews, and more. And we'll see you again real soon.